Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the Nomad Rising podcast. I am your host, Morgan Jones, and today I'm talking with one of my best friends, John Gilligan. I've been friends with John for about 8 years, and when I was 18, he gave me a copy of A Separate Reality by Carlos Castaneda, which triggered a fascination in magic, meditation, psychedelics, and we've been very good friends since. This will be the last local podcast, and I should be travelling around the UK by the next episode. So without further ado, I introduce my good friend, John Gilligan. Okay, and we're rolling. Welcome to the podcast, John. Officially.
Hello.
Why don't you introduce yourself and give us a bit of a backing story?
I'm John Gilligan, born 1958. Oh, I've got that time, by the way, for you. In Birmingham, or as I like to say, Sutton Coldfield. And I have 4 children, all grown up. The oldest is 41 this year. The youngest is 31. And I live in Mid Wales. I run 2 businesses, a furniture store and an auction house. I run an auction house along with a friend of mine, and he's an auctioneer. I do a bit of auctioneering, and I do yoga, but I haven't for a year because of COVID. And I play squash to keep myself active. And we're supposed to be getting back to playing squash now, but the friend I play with has got some injuries from playing football, so there's squash at the moment. I read a lot. I meditate almost every day. I feel the meditation helps me sail through the day of ordinary affairs, of running a business in 21st century UK.
We're currently sitting in Cushy Number, your bed and sofa shop.
Yeah, it's a good place to be because it's safe, secure, comfortable, very comfortable.
Very cushy.
Very cushy. And we did install air conditioning this last year. So if it gets hot, we can even turn the air conditioning on. And it's, I started this business in 37 years ago. I think it was about 37 years ago. Which is quite an achievement, really, to keep a business going all through different governments, different prime ministers, different recessions, COVID, particularly COVID, because we couldn't open our doors to the public, we weren't allowed to. And even now we're still wearing masks here in Wales. I had a week in England a couple of weeks ago, and no mask required, which was really strange, but it was really great. You know.
I think you got confidence, just walk in. No need for masks even in Wales. Give us a bit of a rundown of what you've done up until you started Cushy Numbers.
Well, I worked, when I first left school actually, I worked in furniture briefly, which is odd because then I came back to furniture. I came back to furniture because a friend of mine, his father run a group of furniture stores. And so I was somewhat headhunted because they knew I could talk and I could sell, and so I was headhunted. But when I first left school, I happened to work in a furniture shop in Birmingham, and then I've always wanted to work for myself. I worked for my father for a while because he had his own business, which a brother of mine runs to this day. And then I worked in television. That was interesting. I worked at the BBC, and that was fascinating because you meet a lot of the celebrities, and you see everything behind the camera, which was really exciting, and some great party times as well. And when I worked at Pebble Mill in Birmingham, they would film things like Doctor Who, which my dad always said was a load of rubbish. And I think Michael Grade, when he took over the BBC, said, get rid of that load of codswallop. And then it became the big hit it is now. But when I was there, it was filmed, and the props they weren't locked up at the time. So they were all out, and then you would just walk down the corridor and you'd see a few stray Daleks. And I remember I wanted to go in the gold Dalek, which I don't really watch Doctor Who, but I presume he would be the leader. So I wanted to get in so I did. I got in the gold Dalek with its shepherd's casters and this little wooden bench, and rolled along the corridor, burst into security, but they knew it was me. But it was great fun. And I remember one of the shows one night was Don McLean had come over from the USA, very big star, and recorded an hour and a half concert or whatever. And the grand piano was there after he'd left the building, and then we obviously would be partying and drinking in the club, and we would just go down and be able to go into the studio and sit on the piano. And there was a guy called George who worked in the prop department, and he could play mean piano. And we just have a great sing-song. And you think, 2 hours earlier, this was being broadcast and recorded for millions of people to see, and there we are sitting on the piano, not abusing it, but just having a great time. Real impromptu concerts. And then I worked with Ken Loach, very famous film director. I did 6 weeks on a film. I was freelance at the time, and I worked in the costume department, where we went up to in Yorkshire, and we were making a film called Blackjack, which Barry Norman, who did film review for the BBC, said, I think the year was about 78, perhaps 79. So he did film 78 or 79, in which he said, it sounded very much to me as if the script was made up by the crew and as they went along, and it was a bit like that, because there was just French money put into it. You couldn't get any money through British avenues, and we had to make, I think it was, do we have 250 extras? And we had to make them look like 10,000. So it was a lot of changing of costumes, swapping this jacket with that jacket, swapping a hat here, making sure nobody's got a watch on, because it was set in, I think it was set in about 1600s, something like that. And we had the most awful rain. And the film company had rented a big country house, no heating, and all they had was like an open fireplace, and we had to build fire just to dry the costumes every night, because you couldn't go asking these 250 extras to put on wet clothes the next day. But it was great fun. I stayed in a farmhouse with a rattly window, I remember, because we wouldn't get back we'd often finish in the pub and have a meal. I wouldn't get back till 1 in the morning, something like that, and then back up at 6 o'clock in the morning with a rattly window keeping you awake. I was so tired, but it was very exciting to see what goes on behind the camera. So anything on the TV now or films, it doesn't have a mystery for me, but I still like it. And then I got married then, and so it was either sort of stay down the party line of the BBC, and I remember one New Year's, you'd have 6-7 parties to sort of do a circuit of, and so I settled down and had my first 2 children, and then you think, well, okay, I've got to provide for them now. So I worked for my father for a while. It didn't really work out because I wanted to take his business, which was very much in the dark ages. I wanted to sort of try and progress the business and bring it up into a bit more modern with a bit of technology in that. But that wasn't. That was frowned upon. So because the fact that we'd have to spend £300 on a testing machine, and so I left there, and I was sort of headhunted by my friend's father, who'd got these 8 furniture shops, and that's where I really got into furniture. Then it was good because I was working with a mate, and I was self-employed, and it was good. I was selling, and then I became their area manager then because I could go around and kick ass, and he'd have. We had a concession behind a huge co-op hypermarket. I think it subsequently became a Carrefour, so it was a big, massive store. But behind the tills, we had a concession, only a couple, maybe 2,000 square feet, maybe if not 1,500 square feet, and you had a trapped audience because the people are coming through the tills and looking at your furniture. But one of the staff who would run that was a friend of the director's wife, and whenever I went there, she would be hiding behind a headboard reading a book, and you can't do that in retail. So if I would be there for a week, the figure would just be outstanding. Shows what it's capable of if you stand there and you face the public and you sell. But sitting behind a headboard, it's not going to work. So I was good at that. And then I thought, right, I'd like to work for myself and start my own business. And so I did. I started selling second-hand, delivering in a little van, a trailer behind the van. And then I had a friend whose mother lived here just outside where we are now, a couple of miles outside town. Lovely little cottage, no television, a couple of twigs for a fire, and it was just great to come. When I first came over here, I think I was 16, and I came on the back of my friend's Triumph 750 motorbike. And it was just magical to just get away. Although we lived in Sutton Coldfield, and it was nice, and we lived. My dad had provided us with a nice big house, and we had space. When I came here, it was like, oh, this is beautiful. It's just away from what was I considered a rat race then, and when you go back now, you think, gosh, how it's grown. And then eventually, I thought. This is the kind of place I'd love to live, but how can I earn money? So I had a partnership in business with the former director of the group of companies, and we started a place, and I would do 3.5 days a week, and he would do 3.5 days a week, and I would commute from here in Mid Wales down to Burton-on-Trent, but it was such a bind. Going away from this place was awful. I had to get up very early in the morning, and so I thought, well, maybe look at open a furniture store here. As it happens, I opened one 15 miles away from one of the largest independent retail furniture outlets in the whole of the UK. But it worked for me because it was like, that's a dam. I can sort of, people who are going to that store and they're going into the city and they're going into Shrewsbury and Telford, they've got to pass my door. And I'd got a couple of friends in the trade that I'd built up friendships with who were manufacturers. and they knew I'd got the ability to sell furniture, and they were quite happy to back me. I sold everything I had to put the money into my own shop, and they were prepared to give me stock on sale or return, so I didn't have to buy. I bought 30% of the stock when I first opened, but the other 70% was not owned by me, so it wasn't even insured by me. It was insured by the friends I'd built up in the trade. And it was great because I remember getting these premises here and starting to decorate them, and then there was an articulated lorry full of furniture on its way, very exclusive furniture, which was supplying places like Selfridges and things like that, real high-class furniture, and I was going to get it without paying a penny. All I did was sell on a commission basis. So without their help, then it wouldn't have happened. And then slowly I started buying the stock until we owned a whole lot then, and then just kept the business going. We opened a carpet section when I got married to my second wife, and she was very good. She'd got the flair and that for furniture and for carpets, and she ran the carpet department, which I then lost during the divorce. We'd been together for about 18 years and had 2 other children, so I'd got 4 children. And then with meeting my second wife, she was wonderful with the children from my first marriage. She was the most perfect stepmom. And so because of that, the children didn't like to leave her. They were really distraught every time we took them back to their natural mother. And eventually they decided they wanted to come and live with us. Much to... There was an acceptance in the first place from their natural mother, but then there was a sudden change of mind. You know, you're not having them, trying to use them as pawns, and then she stopped me seeing them for a 9-month period. But I, in the meantime, went and applied to the courts, and it took me that long to get in front of a judge in those days, and I won custody of the 2 boys, and Daniel was 8, Paul was 5, which in those days, in 1989, was a big victory. But we had a fantastic judge who could just see the truth of the situation, and he could see that these boys just needed one thing, that was love and stability, and we could do that. And Paul is still with me to this day. You know, he was at school statemented with special educational needs, and he's still with me to this day, and he's now, was born in 1983, so he's 39, 38, 39.
Oh, my math, I'm not going to try and do that.
And he's still with me to this day, you know, and I make sure everything's sorted for him. He's very capable. He drives. He works here. He delivers. He does all our recycling. Fantastic. Their natural mother long since emigrated to America, and I was really pleased with that accomplishment, that we won custody of the boys, that all important care and control, and we just stuck to the truth, and in front of the judge we just spoke it as it was, and he was fantastic. It was a great victory. So my children live two live in Cardiff. My daughter, who I saw her horse last night, I'll show you a video. She's got this horse, 18 hand. It's huge. I'm 5'10", and it was as tall as me at its withers, down at the bottom of his neck. Yeah. That's how tall it was there. And it's only when you look at the video of a horse that she got, it's like, wow, what a beast. And she gets on, he's 6-year-old. And I said, what's it like riding it? She said, well, it's a bit wobbly in the beginning because he's not really well schooled, but he's starting to come good now. And then, as I say, Paul lives with me. And we just keep working away. And then we opened an auction house trying different things really to diversify. When the shopping became much more online, it was reading the market. And I think in business all you have to do is know your market, follow your market, and read your market, and try and just get ahead of the game and see where the market's going. And I haven't always succeeded in that, but obviously after 37 years or even 40 years working for myself, I've got it right more often than not. And that to me is the important part about running a business, is just almost seeing the future and seeing where the market's going. And I know online is really growing. I buy online. Everybody buys online, and it's going to come more. But at least with us, we have tailored our showrooms and our stock to people who generally don't buy online. They are not the sort of looking for something at a price. They're looking for something that they want to feel, they want to touch, they want to sit in it, they want to try it. And we usually advertise, see it, feel it, try it, and buy it. And we do that. And so we don't bother to go right bottom end, because that's where the online market tends to go. And it's carried us through. And then we diversified into the auction house 7 years ago, the auction house. And I used to buy second hands at auction when the market dropped. I used to buy second hands to, again, follow the market. When my market went down, I went down with it. And that's how we survived. And when the market came up, we went up with it. And so I had never been to an auction, and it was a friend of mine's father he phoned me one Saturday and he said, "Can you get the van over here? There's a pink Draylon 3-piece suite here for £2 if you want it." What? £2? He said, "Yeah, but you've got to get here by 5. I said, "I can't get over there." I said, "Because I'm in the shop on my own." And he came in on the Monday, and I said, "Tell me about this auction." And he said, "Yeah, you often get 3-piece suites in for a couple of quid, and they're in great condition, or pine wardrobes or whatever." He said, "You'll fill your van for £80. So I said, "Next time you go, can I go with you, and we'll take the van?" And we did. Went over, £80, 100 quid, filled the van, came back, refurbished, cleaned, repaired, kept us going. Came to that. That was quite a few years ago. Probably 14 years ago, perhaps. And so of course, that was my dabble into auctions. And I found it exciting. I would just sit there. I'd buy a bit of furniture, etc. But then I'd be fascinated with what would come up for sale. And so we thought, right, let's diversify and start our own auction, which we started very much bottom end, boxes of odds for £2. And we built it up nicely. It's come up nicely, and now it's online. It's been online for about a year, over a year now. And that goes out to a wide audience through a website that we subscribe to, we pay. And that's done really well. We have...
it's called Tower Auctions.
Tower Auctions, yeah, because on our building here. This building we're in now was built during the war, the Second World War. And it was built to make ammunition and weaponry, and the building is so solid. It's built to contain explosions, and there's a big walk-in safe, which I think they used to keep the precious metals in, or the gunpowder, I'm not sure. But on top of the building is a tower. It's about 8 foot square, perhaps 10 foot square, and it goes up about 20 feet, and it was a machine gun lookout tower. Because they say apparently Hitler was going to invade Ireland and then come through England, through Wales, and literally stormtroopers marching down our road outside.
Newtown.
Through Newtown.
Newtown Palace.
And so there were 3 machine gun bricks where they're chamfered, so you could put a machine gun through. I've left the one open on the back. And
just in case.
And that's why we named it Tower Auctions, because the tower, we use it for advertising, and it works well. In fact, we're thinking of putting a nice great big clock on it next year when we do a bit of refurbishment on it. And then I've got a couple of horses. When I was married to my second wife, we ended up with 12 horses, and 2 of the children went the pony club route, and I've still got 2 lovely old 31, 32-year-old mares. Hack on them. They're still in very good health for their age. And then I've got... I have an interest in boats. I've had various boats over the time. And one I sold to a very prominent Lord Donaldson, who was a Master of the Rolls, so the top legal man in the country at the time. And that was an interesting brush with lords and ladies. And I've just sold a boat recently now because the weather's turning, and I'm hoping to get into property now. I want to build a place. I was talking to you earlier about saying I wouldn't mind just buying a plot of land and getting a few volunteers up to help us build.
Yeah, that'd be good. I'll certainly be volunteering for you.
Build a load of yurts. What do they call them, yurts? Are they just yurts over in the cold countries, like in Alaska and stuff like that? Or is a yurt anywhere in the world?
I think so. I think a yurt is a specific tent from, I don't know, Mongolia or something like that.
Is that where it goes from?
I don't know, but something like that. Yeah, and we met in Llanidloes Sports Centre. I was in sixth form, become a lifeguard. And, like 17 working there. You come in for squash.
Yeah.
And, you come in, do your squash, and then you stand there for a good half an hour plus, chatting to me quite happily. Yes, well, there's a customer who needs my help here. I think I can avoid doing work and have a nice chat with John.
I remember you saying, actually, how you were surprised I knew your name. And that was what you said. That was interesting when you said, I was just surprised how you knew my name, because I said Morgan, and it was like, you don't have badges on or anything like that. And then we got talking, and you said you were going off travelling, which I thought was really incredibly brave, that you were going off. Weren't you going off to the Arctic Circle to Norway? And then I read some books at the time that came my way from written by Carlos Castaneda. And I thought, I've got a book here that you might just take on your travels. And that's really where we sort of, started talking on similar sort of levels.
So I was about to leave, and I think I bought you a squash ball, I think, because I was going to finish. I bought a squash ball, came around here. I don't think you were in, but I gave it to Graham.
Yes, I remember now.
I give this to John, tell him he's my favourite customer.
Oh, cool. I remember.
And then the next time you popped in and I was there, you gave me A Separate Reality by Carlos Castaneda.
Yeah.
And I took that travelling, and you wrote I told you I'd write you a letter. So you put your address in the book.
Yeah, and I've got all the letters, because whenever you travelled...
So I went off, started reading this Castaneda, bought a one-way plane ticket to Norway, 18, just finished school. Get there and suddenly realise, okay, I'm a little bit lonely. This is quite the...
when did that hit you? When
adventure.
You first landed, or when you're on the plane? When did that sort of first hit you? Like, oh my God, I'm 18 from...
The plane was alright. I was chatting with a guy next to me. That was quite nice. Got there. So I booked a hostel for 2 days in Oslo. And then I got to the hostel then, and then dropped my stuff off.
And at that point...
I'm just in this big city, just totally by myself. First time properly leaving home, thousands of miles away from home. Don't know what I'm going to do. So that was a bit, So those first 2 days were a bit tough in this city, and once I got out and I just started hitchhiking and hit the road, it got a little bit easier then. But in the countryside,
I think it's just so brave to just going over there with no contact, just straight over there, launching yourself over there, one-way ticket. I thought that's what I did admire.
But at the time, brave for me was every other person around me, like sticking around in this shithole.
Yeah, but as shitholes go, it's not too bad.
It's not too bad, but I needed to get out of here. But then, traveling through there, and it's quite tough traveling by yourself, hitchhiking and sleeping in your tent.
I mean,
you've got to deal with yourself. You know, it's quite lonely.
I mean, you have neighbours, which is different to me, and that's why I preferred my situation where I live on a hill, and I have no neighbours. I had no neighbours but now I have two neighbours because the farmer who owns the whole place has developed the barns, and I've got two sets of neighbours there, which are great. They're fine, but I will have to move because now there's a barn above my house which they own, and they've also put in planning permission for that now. So I'll end up with three neighbours, and the last one has got two windows overlooking my very private garden, where I have a massive trampoline, and I love to go home on dry nights. I just sit there on the trampoline. Sometimes I use the trampoline as well, but basically I'm off the grass, so I'm not worrying about dog poo, not worrying about bugs. I can just lie there with a pillow, and I'll stay there and watch the stars come out at night. It's great. But with neighbours overlooking me, they'll just think, oh, who's this weird guy? So that's why I'm planning next year a move because of that. You know, I don't blame them. I mean, it's money for them. They're bringing in, you know, four rentals from one farm. But for me, it's a stroke too far. The other neighbours at the back don't really interfere with us much. But you know that the other day I'm starting the boat engine. You're aware, you know, I am neighbourly. I don't want to be revving the balls off an engine. The neighbours' windows are open on a hot day, so it's just that air of I just like to be with no neighbours. I love no neighbours. I love my peace and quiet in the countryside. So.
It's community more for me.
Yeah, it's. I like to. I
I'm
do
not a huge
like
fan of community here. It's not.
I do like my quiet time because during the day there's a lot of words spoken. Sometimes too many words, and you just want to go where there's no words. Where there's no words is quite magical for me. That's why I meditate. You know, the words are there when you start meditation, and then when you stick at it. And I've meditated now seriously for probably 10 years, and it probably took me 5 years to really hone in on what meditation is and try and find the right spot, the right time of day. I would try, you know, normally the easiest thing to do would be to try the evenings where the evenings are free, but it just didn't work for me. And it just naturally, when you persevere, that you intend, you want to meditate, you want to do this thing where you're just quiet, where there's no words, and eventually it does start to click into place. And for me, it's in the morning, and I don't have an alarm. I wake up. Nature normally wakes me up. I sleep with the window open all year round, unless it's really horrendous. And when I wake up, this morning it was about 10 to 6. It's just time to go and meditate. I don't think of going back to sleep. There was a time going back 15, 20 years ago, it was like, oh, I just want to lie in. You know, especially running one business, big business then. But those days have long since gone, and I just realised the importance of meditation is that I get more energy and more energised and more centred, more balanced through meditation than I ever do through sleep. And some mornings, and now I wake up at 4 o'clock, and I'm like, wow, that is a bit early. So I sleep with my little dog, Bridget, my 15-year-old Jack Russell. She sleeps on my bed. So if I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning, then I just sort of grab her, give her a cuddle, and then just go off to sleep for another hour or two. And then I take my nutrition seriously. So I get up
what do you do for your meditation first?
My meditation, I first of all take my nutrition. So if I'm up like this morning 10 to 6, I downstairs, I make my nutrition, my supplements, and a milk powder formula, bit of safflower oil. The first thing I do is get that down my neck, because I don't really do breakfast. And then I go over to my sofa, sit in the corner of my sofa, get into a meditative position. I always pull a duvet over me, make a little man cave, and sometimes I read. Perhaps if I'm meditating 6 mornings a week, I'll read for perhaps 3. So I might read 2 pages, or I might read 10, and then it's time to put the words away. and then I close my eyes and let the breathing take over. And the breathing's over that amount of years, eventually you see the breathing is so important, and you just let the breath naturally find its level. And then I say I go away with I call it going away with the fairies. I just let the words go, because normally I'll be there. Something will come to mind about what's coming in the business day, what needs doing at home, all the usual old crap, that comes up. It's got to be faced, it's got to be done. But you push it away and say it's not the time. You laugh and say, "Oh, come on, stop thinking about a spark plug on an outboard motor." There's a time and a place, and it's not in my meditation time. And so over the years, you just learn to let the words come, but also just
let them go.
Let them go. And then I get so relaxed, and I end up in some positions where even when I do yoga, I can't get into those positions, because you still got that muscle tightness, even though your teacher's coming and saying, "Relax your shoulders," and I'm thinking, well, my shoulders are relaxed, and then she touches my shoulders and they go down another 3 inches. Okay. But in meditation, you just go into this clump, and the words have gone, and then you just go with it, and you feel when you come back out of meditation, you just feel ready to take on the day. I think I liken it to that. I empty when I meditate, and then it's important then to get up and to fill up again. And I like that, because it's that balance, and I've always said to you, otherwise I may have to be a Trappist monk or something like that. I do, I don't like to slate them, but I think anybody can go up to a hill and, disappear, and anybody can do that. But what use are they to man or beast? I'm living in the world of man. I love living in the world of man. I love functioning in the world of man. I function with business.
I don't know. I think they contribute just as much as you sell in your sofas.
They may do. I mean, as I say, I can't slate them, but I like.
Without those characters, in reality, we're missing a whole aspect to the world that.
Yeah, but I don't. But I do think they. I don't know. I can't say. But I mean, for me, I like to empty, and then fill up again, and it's that constant cycle, which I like. Is the emptying. The emptying. I mean, the emptying is fabulous, but also it can be, I could stay here forever. But I don't think that's healthy. I think it's healthy to get off your arse and do something, whatever it is. If it's a mundane task, even if I was pushing trolleys at Tesco. Fine.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't think you quite know what these monks do.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
I mean, I have been and there's different types of monks. But look, a lot of them
make wine, because I've been to monasteries and they all sell wine.
Yeah, but like Zen monks, they go about their daily business. They do chores, and they're just trying to be totally present, be in the now. They maintain the whole thing. They just do shitty chores all day.
Yeah, but it looks easy. Probably
but is it easy to be 100% present with all of those activities?
Yeah, I mean, it's choice. As I say, what works for me is that my life is the same as it was when I first started to work. So I've always worked. When I was 14, I had 3 jobs. I drove. Well, I didn't. I worked as an assistant. We lived opposite a golf course. So walk out of our house, and there was a really wonderful 18-hole golf course. And I befriended the head gamekeeper, a guy called Fred, I think he was, an old boy. And I got work on the golf course. So when I would get up in the morning, then wonderful, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, during the spring and the summer and the autumn, getting up, and then he gave me, he did have a single key, the key to his massive Ferguson tractor, an old grey tractor. I loved it. He getting up at that time in the morning, sunshine, getting on this old track. Well, what 14-year-old kid wouldn't love that, Because I'd got two of my own cars when I was 14, 15. I couldn't go on the road with them, but we lived on a long private drive, so we could, go up and down there.
That's right for some, isn't it?
It was great, and I was really proud of my dad that he provided that he took the plunge, and he moved us from a semi-detached house, which he'd had extended because there was 5 kids. There was 5 of us, so he needed a pretty big house. And he bought, and he went to the max. He stretched his finances to the max to buy this 6-bedroom bungalow. And I'm really proud that he did that, because that gave me the space and the freedom, and the fact that 4 of us were boys and 1 girl, but we could, we had motorbikes, we had go-karts, we annoyed the fuck out of the neighbours. And then you've got room, to say the driveway. I had 2 cars. I had an old NSU car and an old Morris Minor 1000. I couldn't afford to put a battery on it. It had got a battery, but it was flat, but you could start it with the starting handle. And fortunately, it was very reliable, so you'd go out and turn the ignition on, wind the starting handle on it, start the thing up, because I couldn't afford a battery for a car. And then the golf club, I've always managed to fit in, and it was great that I fit in with the greenkeeper, and the fact that he gave me the keys to his tractor. That was the thing, because apart from that, you'd go do a lot of walking around the golf course, raking bunkers. But when I had the keys to his tractor, and because I lived literally 100 yards from the 18th hole, I'd go and get the tractor out at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'd go around and drive around the whole 18 holes. And you had a big bamboo pole with a flexi fiberglass, almost like a big CB aerial or something, big stick on it, a whippy stick, and you would just go round and brush the grass of the green, and that would take the dew down into the grass, so it would naturally give the grass on the green a bit of water. And it was just, you could make patterns in it. So I used to do all 18 holes before the golfers arrived. I don't know, I think it was about 9 o'clock start. And then I would go and do a paper round before, if it was at school time, I'd still do a paper round. And then on a Saturday morning, I would do a milk round. I would help on a milk round, a milkman's van, which was great because you're delivering milk. I'm sort of 13, 14, 15 maybe. And you're delivering milk, you're out, you can drink as much gold top milk as you like. And then we'd go to a cafe, sausage and egg sandwich. It was great. The worst part was probably the paper round. That was very laborious. Walking around the streets with a great big sack of newspapers.
Yeah, I've done a paper round.
Yeah, but 3 jobs. I had enough money then to have my 2 little old rough as shit cars. And I didn't really know anything about cars, but I learned so much on cars that I can do pretty much most jobs on a car now, apart from anything to do with a gearbox. And I bought my own boat when I was 14. It was only a little old wooden speedboat that I put a little put engine on. It would never, this thing would never go fast, and you wouldn't go fast in. You wouldn't want to go fast in it anyway. But I was very proud my dad would do that. He wouldn't take family allowance when it first came in, family allowance, which all children qualify for. It was my mum who had to say, this is stupid, this is state money, and he was like, I'm not having any state bringing up my kids. So he was a good provider. And
in school, you most of your friends were the teachers.
I was good friends with the teachers. I probably worm my way in any situation I'm in. I'm adaptable, let me put it that way. Probably a good actor, good set of masks. Because with the teachers, because I hated school. I hated bureaucracy. I hated when somebody asked me my date of birth. I would refuse. Unless I had to give my date of birth, say to a police officer, as I did when I was riding a motorbike illegally, underage. But I would hate, this point in time that people want to know. And but with teachers, I became very friendly, not like a teacher's pet, But with one teacher, I was in a fishing club, so we'd go fishing together, and I'd go around to him and his family, his wife, and they had a little child. Go around there and have dinner. Fantastic. Another teacher, great player of the electric fiddle. He had a band, which I was saying to somebody the other day. The band, I'm going back now. Oh my goodness me. I'm going back 45 years at least. And that band is still going to this day. Obviously, the members must and may have changed. And particularly the teacher who was the music teacher at the school I was in. He didn't teach me music, but he did teach one of my brother's music. And he played electric fiddle in the band. And the band's called Quill. And I looked on listings, I think it was for Theatre 7 in Shrewsbury a few weeks ago, and there was Quill listed. The band's still going. You think, wow, kudos to them, And so with them, I would go to, I would have been now probably about 15, going on 16, and I would go to clubs watching them perform. And I'd just get pissed as a fart, but, And then another teacher, who was a maths teacher, let me go back, because when I was 11, I went to a high school, which was a mile or so from where we lived in the semi-detached house. And when you fit in and you sort of get into that role, you think, right, okay, because I hated it, the last day of summer holiday, the dread of going back into that school the next day was terrifying. And I suppose that's why I learned to adapt and to act and fit my way in. And then we moved. My dad bought the big house, and that was about 9-10 miles away from school. And all my siblings moved to schools near the big house, and I didn't want to, because I'd got my niche. I was only 11, but I know I'm in here. I'm okay. This will do. I can survive this. So I, again, proud of my dad, because I said, look, I don't want to leave that school. And he was great. He didn't say, well, you just got to leave school. Go to the other school with your brothers. He said, no, if you find a way of getting to school, he said, I'll pay, because the state wouldn't pay for me to get to school. And so I found buses and trains, and actually I would go on the train every day. And then with that school, that's where I managed to, become, I think I became a prefect. But I enjoyed school because there was only one teacher I thought was a complete and utter prat, and he probably thought I was a prat, but he did catch me smoking on a school field trip, I think it was. But all the other teachers, great, and it was not where, I'd go back into the school the next day and say, to my peers, I was out with Sir last night, or Miss so-and-so. And then another teacher I was in amateur dramatics society with. And then another teacher I befriended as well. That's where I got my role in television, when I worked in TV, because he was friends with a reporter who would do a Midlands magazine programme, and he was the TV not a news reporter, but an item reporter, And so he said, he was an English teacher, and he said, as part of our sort of project, he said, we're going to go to the studios. If I think it was 6 of us could go, 5 or 6 of us could go, and we watched the programme go out live, which was like 6:30, I think. So yeah, I'm up for that. I must have been 16 because I had my moped, because I distinctly remember. And so I said, well, I'll make my own way there, and the rest went in his car, I presume. So I set out on my moped, and biblical rain came down. I'm driving now, it's probably 15 miles to the BBC studios, and it just pissed it down. Absolutely fat old rain. And I was piss wet through. And I thought, there's no way I can walk into TV studios like this. So the teacher had given me the number of this reporter guy. And so I pulled over, went to a phone box before mobile phones. And I phoned him. And I said, look, you've seen the rain. I'm in this rain on my motorbike. I'm piss wet through. And he said, no problem. He said, give me a ring anytime. Give me a ring and you can come for like a private viewing of the show. And I thought, that's cool. I went, great, okay. So dragged myself back home, dried myself out. And then a few days later, I couldn't wait just to ring. I think, oh yeah, let's go and see what goes on in a TV studio. Very exciting. And I rang him and he said, yeah, pop up. And actually we became friends. And that's where my time in television sort of started. Went and watched this show go out live, and then we just became friends, and I would go there all the time, and then eventually I worked there, and meeting, and I would take friends as well who would be fascinated to say, well, come and have a drink at the club, and then we watch a bit of TV going on. There is such a buzz. I don't know about now. I think it's changed a lot, but I still think there must be a buzz in it. Because when I've gone to be in an audience for shows, over the last few years, you get tickets to go and Graham Norton and stuff like that. There's still that, you can feel that buzz is there, but I don't think it's what it is when we were there, because the rules and regulations were much more laxed, and it was just really exciting, and meeting some great characters. And I'm still young. I was still very young, and I remember once, pissed as a fart again in the club. The drinking circle and the smoking circle. I was smoking then as well, and cigarettes then at the BBC were subsidised. Like if you were in the forces, if a packet of cigarettes on Civvy Street was 50p in the forces and in the BBC, I presume any large government establishment, they would be 20p. So you could, you could smoke your freaking head off. And I remember talking in a circle, and the head of the BBC Asian unit in the Midlands was there, and there's perhaps 8 or 10 of us talking away, and I'm still only, I'm probably 17, I don't know, 17. I'll work out the maths, but I was still very young, and I remember this guy who ran the Asian department smoking a pipe, and he's puffing away on this pipe, and when you've had a drink, you sort of get mesmerised by the most simplest of thing draws your attention. Puffing away on this pipe, so I piped up and said, Jerry, is there an art in smoke piping? Never knew I'd said it the wrong way round. And it was only that friend of mine later on that night said, do you realise what you asked Jerry? And I said, yeah, I asked him if there was an art in pipe smoking. He said, no, you said, is there an art in smoke piping? So I must have sounded like a prat on many occasions. But it was still great. It was still great fun. And so my school, going out with the teachers, the music teacher, watching the band play, it was great. It was great. It made school fantastic because, these teachers I'm friends with are never going to be shitty teachers, But I'd still do my work, but I still didn't like doing the work. I remember arguing with the one then passed when I moved as well. I forgot to say, when I moved to the big house, so I'm about 12, 15 miles away, one of the teachers says, well, I live in Tamworth and I pass the end of your snobby private drive every morning and every night on the way to school. I pass by at 8:30. If you want a lift, you've got this little Mini. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. So that was another way of getting to school. But he did say, I'll turn the corner and if you're not there, I'll carry on. And there were mornings where I saw him turn the corner and carry on as I was just 400 yards away. But yeah, many mornings I'd just jump in his car and he was that was the maths teacher, Glyn Smith. Again, fantastic. I remember arguing with him once about algebra, because I think, unfortunately, on my mind, I like to think my mind works logically, and I like to work out what's going on in anything, be it mechanical or anything. And I hated algebra. Couldn't see the point of this algebra shit. I thought, what the fuck is this all about? So I would argue and say to him, what are we? I wouldn't use those words, but I basically, what are we doing this shit for? This is x equals what? And he said, oh, well, when I'd argue, he said, oh, it's because it teaches your mind or your brain to think logically. And I said, well, but if your brain is already logical, then it's illogical to try and teach it to be logical. And he just said, oh, well, it's part of the national curriculum, get on with it. Anyway, I'm going to go for a piss. We've been friends. Well, you're 24 now. So it's got to be 8 years.
Yeah.
8 years.
Or 6 years.
No.
8 years, yeah.
8 years.
16,
That's
17.
amazing.
Yeah,
It's 8 years.
Yeah.
When I handed you that book.
Yeah, let's go back to Castaneda. And
Oh, yeah.
Reading that, travelling. And
Was it a separate reality?
A separate reality, the second one. And then I brought that back home, and my mum's read all.
Yeah, I
all
remember
the
you saying your mum
books.
was into Carlos Castaneda, yeah.
So she gave me the first one, The Teachings of Don Juan, A Yaqui Way of Life. And so reading that first one, I suppose, then start with travelling. And it's a tough read.
It is a tough read.
I can certainly see if you're
I
not
think
in the
the
right
first
place
two-
in your life, then
I think the first two are a tough read for anybody.
yeah, you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
But I remember I was in Trondheim in Norway, sort of city, middle of Norway. Sitting at a park and, sort of just trying to deal with myself, I suppose. And trying to read through this book. What is this book? The shaman stuff is interesting, but okay. And then Don Juan's talking to Carlos about how to become a man of knowledge. And he's sort of talks about this, I suppose it's like a medicine wheel, or I suppose you could work it as a spiral, but there's 4 stages, 4 gates you've got to cross in order to become a man of knowledge.
Yeah.
And the first gate is fear. Once you cross fear, then you've got to sort of, ego comes up and you've got to battle your ego, you've got to deal with clarity. Or does ego come
more into power, perhaps?
Or maybe it's cockiness, no? Got to get over that. You've got clarity, now you can see things, and then once you conquer that, then you've got power, because then you've got the control. And so with the power, you've got, I suppose, you can abuse the power.
The illusion of control. If you're still trapped with a bit of fear and not quite in the clarity, then the control you perceive as being control is actually more of an illusion of control. Whereas if you conquer all 3 and you can overcome fear, which is they're all equal hurdles actually, but you see the first one as a monstrous fear. If you can overcome the fear of becoming knowledgeable and seeing, as they say, then the clarity comes. But then eventually, if you're in power, but you're not using power correctly, then obviously it's because fear. So they all link, going back and forth, back and forth.
And then the last one is time.
Oh, the beautiful one, the time, the ticking clock.
Old age. About to hold, keep fighting and keep.
Well, I say to you, when you look at what man can do to each other and what man can do to a planet, imagine if they all had all the time in the world. There's got to be that beautiful ticking clock, which is no more. No more. Enough is enough.
But yeah, I read this and, everything, a lot of things made sense. I'm like, shit, I've just got to deal with fear right now. That's all I am.
Yeah,
I'm just afraid of what? Being here by myself. I don't know. So I'm like, shit. But then there's all these other bloody hurdles after that. That's just the first step. So, okay, that's easy. If I've got all the way to go here, and this is just the beginning, then that was very yeah, very helpful for me the rest of my trip. Then I'm like, well, this is just fear. We get over that, and there's still a long way to go.
There's a long way to go.
So then after that, yeah, you got your address in the back of your book. So
Yeah,
I was like,
those letters.
I'm gonna write this guy a few
was great.
stories.
And you're not a brilliant writer, and you're dyslexic like me, aren't you?
Yeah.
But it was great to receive. I think that first one was like about 5 full A4 pages, both sides, a 10-pager. Wow, fascinating. I've still got them. We'll have to do a session where I read them, or I'll read them back to you. Actually,
yeah,
that would
be
be
cringy.
No, it would. I think that would be great because they are fascinating to see, especially when I was in awe of your travelling, like just how you can just go and travel, whether it's escapism or whatever. It's the fact is you are getting on a plane, you're fucking off out of here on your own, no return ticket. It scares the shit out of me. But like, wow. And then to receive the letter and to really experience what you were experiencing and the fear and all this. And I remember all of them, all the letters you've sent has been great, Apart from when you sent that one cigarette for Ben, which the customs sort of seized, but it was fine. They let it pass through, but it was like was it 2 cigarettes from somewhere like?
Yeah, from Peru, Mapache cigarettes.
Oh God, when he lit them up, it was like a bonfire. The customs opened them, thinking,
Did they?
Well, what we got here.
Oh yeah. Well,
We've
they didn't find
Moroccan woodbine, have we?
Yeah, they didn't obviously notice the little bits of a coca leaf that was mixed in.
Oh really? I wonder why he was off his tits.
No, not that would really do anything to you.
And then I was trying to say this to a friend the other day. So you did Norway, and I remember that I was telling him about that time when you went into that hut, and the rain came and all the water.
It was a beautiful sunny day. Walked down this fjord to the sort of point of the fjord, and there was this little hut there that you could go and it's had a little bed and a wood burner and stocked up for hikers. And you had to cross this stream to get to it. And it's a beautiful day. Wake up the next day.
Did you think you'd like arrived in heaven? Did you think, this is beautiful?
Yeah, birds are singing, sun's beating down.
And then did the storm come?
And then this massive storm came in the night and like torrential downpour. Like get up the next day and walked down towards this stream, which is now like just a torrential river. I'm like, I can't cross that. So there's like mountains all around behind me with all the big fog down. I'm like, shit, I've got a bit of food, so I have to like hunker down here for a little while.
for a few months.
Yeah. So then I'm like nice and tucked away, and suddenly there's like a knock on the door. I'm like, who the fuck is that?
Jehovah's Witnesses.
How the hell has anybody gotten here? And the guy who'd given me a lift hitchhiking and told me about this spot, who lived nearby, had sort of got his boat and sort of come
up the river.
Yeah, up the fjord.
With a motorboat or rowing boat?
Yeah, motorboat. And he came and rescued me.
He knew what the situation you were in?
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing, that is.
And then I'm soaking wet, and I've eaten most of my food, and I go to the shop to buy some more food. Bank card wouldn't work. Oh shit! Okay, I can't.
Why wouldn't it work?
I don't know. Maybe it's just the shop. I'm like soaking wet. I haven't got any food. I'm like, okay, get on the road. I stick my thumb out and see what happens. And there's a guy who'd been standing there, and I walk up to him. He'd been there for like 2 hours. I stand there with him. 5 minutes later, get a lift. This woman picks us up by herself in a van. Get in a van, start talking to her, and I think I said it's from Wales, and she's like, your name Morgan Jones?
What?
Yes. How would you know that? And she's like, you emailed me about a volunteering thing.
And that coincidence.
No way.
That is strange.
Is there any chance I could like just come for the weekend? She's like, yeah, that's fine.
What a coincidence.
Yeah.
That is amazing. That is weird. And
so that's the thing with traveling, the synchronicities and everything links together, and one scenario leads on to the next. And if that shit thing hadn't happened, this amazing thing over here wouldn't have happened.
It's like when you look back at what's happened, even though you're in the thick of a storm or whatever in your life. I think it's only that if you're asking for something, so you want to see through things, you want to see the picture, you want knowledge, and if you ask for it, you're sort of tapping onto a force or something which, you know, it responds, but it responds not in the way we little humans with our words and our reason expect. It reacts in the only way it can, which is like energetically, through energy, and it pushes us into these places and circumstances. And it's only, and I remember saying once when I stood up in the back hill, and there was a warm wind blowing, and it was a very fierce wind, and I was leaning into the wind, and it was holding me up, and I just sort of shouted out loud, you know, because you're in a bit of turmoil at that time in your life, and I just remember shouting, you know, once I learn the lesson that I have actually asked for, you know, please let the suffering end. But actually, it was an illogical question, because when we do learn, we really learn the lesson that which is on a journey to where we have asked to go. It's logical it would end. It's only when our ugly, decrepit humanness and reason and words come into play. If you've asked for something bolder and grander, then it's going to kick your ass, you know. But you then reach plateaus, and when you look back, it's like when you look back on your travelling, you can look back and look at the finesse that was at play. That's where, when you're in the thick of something like that, though, like your weekend 3 or 4 weekends ago, you look at that one at the festival. But when you look back, you go, well, what finesse was at play in my life, because I've asked and I've tapped something, and therefore be careful what you ask for, because it will surely come. It responds, but it doesn't respond as oh, this is going to be wonderful. I'm going to have a house in the country. It's nothing to do with anything materialistic at all. And I think that's where you've witnessed that yourself. But when you went after Norway, did you then do Japan?
Yeah, well, Norway, through Scandinavia, around Europe,
then
Morocco.
Back here, then Japan.
Back here worked a bit, then Japan.
And then from Japan, South America.
No, well, Japan. Then I booked a place in uni. Like, I preferred a spot, which, well, it's a bad idea, but
seemed good at the time.
Yeah, and well, I don't regret it. I made some very good friends.
Was that peer pressure, do you think? Your peers are doing this, you should do this?
A little bit, yeah. Sixth form's all about push you to go university, and everyone else is going university, and I'm like, oh, I want to go travelling, but okay, maybe I'll book a place in university, so I've got this thing.
You get roped into it, like, next thing you know, Did you go with the intent mainly for university rather than to learn and expand your cranium? Was it just like, oh, this could be a good party scene?
No, it wasn't about partying. No, it was something to do.
Just something to do.
Yeah.
Like an easy decision.
Well, everything in this society is all like, you've got to... you got to have a career, you got to have a job, you got to be doing something, It's
I mean, I never went to college.
I don't know what to do. So.
I never went to higher education because I couldn't wait to get out of there. As I say, I tailored it to make it very comfortable, and it was great. But I couldn't wait to get out of that. Well, no,
neither could I. That's why I bought one-way plane ticket to Norway.
But then you went.
But then I got back.
You went to uni,
Yes, but then I got there, and I didn't want to be back in school. I'm like, that's. Yeah, and studying, and you got to do this work, and I was doing film. It was good fun, it was creative, but my heart wasn't 100%. I like telling stories. I like stories, but that wasn't the right place for me at that time.
Oh, I definitely could.
And I just did a year of traveling. I come back, and you're surrounded by lots of 18-year-olds, and I've had they're all children, and it's Though I did need to do the party thing for sure.
Yeah.
because I hadn't quite.
We haven't stopped.
I mean, around here, growing up around here, we didn't, we got pissed together and stuff like that, but we didn't do the party thing too much.
I've never experienced it because I never went to college or university, so I don't know what that scene is like. I only see it with friends who.
And then again, reading Castaneda, like, I don't know what drugs. I don't know. Not drugs are bad, but I don't know. I wasn't so interested in drugs. I smoked a bit of weed with some people, drink. And then read Castaneda, and he's talking about peyote and datura and all these things. And I'm like, whoa, hang on a minute. Wait, there's these plants and drugs that they actually take you to like other dimensions and show you all this magical world. What is this? These drugs aren't just bad, they're not.
I remember.
And so that got my interest then. So then I become fascinated with psychedelics and things. And
yeah.
And that's really got me into that.
I remember one of my first encounters with magic mushrooms, as it turned out, was I was asked by a friend of mine, the normal person who drove with him to Belgium to get their booze and cigarettes and tobacco cheap. Their wife was very ill, so I was asked, because they knew I could drive abroad, and I'd driven abroad many times. Could I share the driving on a basically a booze cruise? And so I said, yeah, no problem. And I was driving down the motorway in UK, heading towards Dover, and all I could hear in the back was my friend's dad saying to his wife, in the passenger seat at the back, me and my friend were in the front of the car. I could hear him just saying, I've never told you this story. I could hear him say, all I could hear him saying was, I've got some lovely purples. Some lovely purples. And the funny side of me thought, is he into my bag of fucking Skittles? But he'd bombed mushrooms. And quite a bit of them. And of course, I didn't know this, but all I could hear is, I'm trying to concentrate on the road, and all I can hear is, I've got some lovely purples coming out. I've got some lovely purples. Of course, I see the funny side of it, because, later I find out that he's bombed. He puts them in, they put them in Rizzler. Is it dried mushroom? What's it called, the mushroom here?
Liberty caps.
Liberty caps, is it? And he was getting off his trolley, and I didn't know at the time. I thought, what's he going on about? All these colours and these purples, and as I say, I thought he was in my bag of Tutti Frutti. And I thought, then I think, God, blimey, I'm sure when I find out what he's on, I thought, my God, he's driving this car in a few hours. Or I think I might have drove most of the way there, most of the way back anyway. We didn't even stop the night. It was like literally drive to Dover, get on a boat, drive to place. It's one of the easiest places to get to in Belgium, where you get the cheap tobacco and that. Agincourt, I think it was Agincourt, and buy all the. And I didn't smoke and I didn't drink, so I was just, I don't mind travelling. I like to drive abroad, and load the car up, head back. Why not pop a few mushrooms on the way? Oh, hysterical to hear those words, and then to see you and your journeying into the world of psychedelics, but also in Castaneda. There's also a point where Don Juan, because Castaneda's on everything, he's doing all the mescal, part of the mescalito ceremony and all this sort of stuff.
Well, mescaline is in peyote.
Oh, is that what it is? Yeah, and all that, and then Don Juan says to him at one point, he said, "Oh yeah, I put you all through, all that crap." And Carlos said, "I beg your pardon? What do you mean all that crap?" He said, "Oh yeah, it's your bent of character. I knew you'd fall for it hook, line, and sinker. I had to hook you somehow." And it was like, what? I remember when I read that, I thought, my God, what a revelation it must have been to Carlos Castaneda. What the fuck have you put me on? What have you put me through? But if we believe what's in the books, at that time, that's what he needed, because he says he was a social scientist, and his words and his reason was too strong. And some people do need, at times, a chemical which will make the words go away. I mean, like when ecstasy is invented, it was for trauma, and people could open up after trauma. It's great. But like I say, I still hold to it today. If you're ill or you are inventing character, you have let's say a flaw, but you've got something which needs addressing, and you take poisons, you're probably different with this, then they will cure you. But if you haven't, and you take them, then each time it is a mini death. They'll kill you. But there are
that you can experience ego death. You mean like that?
Yeah, and I and there are people. I mean, I've got.
But that is a lesson in itself.
Yes, I mean, I've got friends now that I know, who I would really think, if I was ever doing a serious talking session with them, and we're going to talk on a deep level and start to lose some of the words and drop the masks, then they wouldn't be able to converse unless they actually had something like, I don't know, mushrooms or acid or something like that. I'm confident of that, but it's for them to come to me and say, and I do get people who come to me who need just a session, and I tend to call it Reiki, but all it is really is just where I get them to relax. And it's almost, I did hypnosis as well. I used to have hearing work, actually. At the back of one of the units, there was a guy who used to make stuff out of wool. He was well into his wool, and he would weave and knit wool and all sorts of stuff like that. And he was a hypnotist, a hypnotherapist, should I say. And I befriended him because he was in one of the units at the back here. And every week he would have like this hypnosis club in his unit. And so I'm interested. I'll give anything a go. And so I would go to him with a girlfriend I was with at the time. Oh, and I found it hysterical. I have to see the humour in everything, really. Otherwise, I'm not interested. If there's no humour in it, I'm not interested. But I would find it funny because you get some of these women were like into spiritualism and all this, and mixing it up with a bit of hypnosis, and it was great. And I learned to hypnotise people. I loved to be hypnotised by him. And literally, if he walked into this day and he just went sleep now, then I'm the most willing volunteer, because I've been there and done it, and it doesn't scare me. The word is wrong, actually. Hypnos, sleep. You're not. You're more. It's just shut the words up for a minute. Shut the bloody words up, and let something else come into your life, like a bit of magic. And he lectured in it as well in Birmingham, and occasionally I would accompany him down to Birmingham at an evening college, and he would go down, and I would help him do his lecture in hypnosis. And then, so that's where I really see Reiki is more. They're all words, they're all titles for basically good intent. You've got a friend who just needs a bit of time out, and so all you need to do is get them into a state where they can shut the fuck up, feel safe, feel comfortable, and just relax. It's almost like hypnosis. It's almost like meditation. And it works. I mean, after it, I've had many friends sit right where you are, and, I cover them in a little man cave blanket or something like that. And then, I label it as Reiki, but it doesn't matter what the label is. The fact is, you just want your friend to just have time out. And anybody, when we have time out, we feel so much better. And then from there on, you've got to build. You've got to build and see that time out for what it is. And many don't. They just go back to their lives, and they fill up again, overfill, and then They don't always come back to me for a session, because I'll only ever help those who are prepared to help themselves. But a lot do.
Integration, same as psychedelics.
Is that what's
important
that word mean? Integration.
You have the experience and then you need to process it and
Yes.
bring it all on board.
Yeah.
Because you might have been shown a lesson, but whether you've accepted it and understood it and
it's like it
actually
is.
learn from it.
It is. It's a good stepping stone. Most people don't change until we don't change. Humans are terrible at changing unless they're shaken to their boots. So many people get a life-changing experience, and normally the best changing experience is associated with death. I find death is the best teacher because it won't lie. It's there right in front of everybody. We can all see it in everything we see, whether we have animals who die, loved ones who die. Death is and actually I like those Don Juan's words, where it is the best witness to take to your very next act. If you take your impending doom with you to your very next act that you perform at your best. And I do like that approach to acting impeccably. And I speak many times to people about this word impeccably. And impeccability is just the best use of your energy. Keeping your energy levels, keeping vital, keeping your whole persona balanced. Like you can aim high and walk. You can walk along a rocky ridge and look left and look right, but ultimately you could walk along a razor's edge when you're that high up, that fine. You're touching it like a ballerina would touch, if you want it. Or you can just come back down and walk a rough ridge. Let's call it that. I like that analogy, actually. Yeah, that sort of just come to me.
How did you get into Castaneda?
It's good because I call them power books because it doesn't matter whether it is the spoken word with the right intent or a book with the energetically correct intent. Let's put it that way. And it's how they do come to you is very poignant, really, because this book was destined for a friend of mine, and another friend of mine had this book and some other Castaneda books, and this friend of mine who was he was well into his psychedelics, and he was into that side of life. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and she said, would he be interested in? He would be interested in this book. And I said, well, it might be. And I said, I'd never come across the name, and in fact, I didn't read a lot in those days. And
how old were you then?
That was probably 20 years ago. So I was 40. That was 42. And business was good. Big house in the country, 12 horses, horse lorry, puppies on the porch, room for a pony. Yeah, business was good. Beautiful wife, 4 great kids, all achieving in their own way. But I still felt, now I use the word, disconnected. I was busy, and I had the money, the Rolls Royce, the horses, the farm, boat, yacht. But I still, whilst it was fun, I still, the real core of me was not awake. It was a bit like a pilot light. And you're doing the motions, which is fine, because when you got kids, you got responsibility. And I'm a man who's always taken responsibility for my acts. If I do something wrong and I'm a prat, well, pay the price for it. So when kids come along, you have to provide for them. And so with all of that, I well provided for them. But you still feel this is not quite as connected as I should be. You've got that disconnection. It's good. It's almost like you've designed, like when I was at school, you fit in, you fit in. And it was like that. I of late, of the last few years, I sort of surrender, more acquiesce and say, right, okay, what is my life? Where is my life? I know it wasn't there with all that. And somebody would look at me, with the beautiful wife, the kids, the horses and all that. Wow, I want to swap with him, but, I would rather have swapped with the Dalai Lama, or I would have rather swapped, for a pair of sandals in a hut like you up in Norway, But you don't, because you've got kids and you've got responsibility. But now the kids have grown up and moved on, apart from Paul, so I'm still there for Paul. You just feel this disconnection. And so at that time, I was learning to play the piano, filling life with certain things. And as I say, this book was destined for a friend of mine. And this friend of mine really had, when I brought the book back down to here, it just sort of floated around. He had no interest in reading, And I remember...
So you didn't give the book to your friend?
I said, but it sort of floated around the office as if I'm not really interested in reading it, really, I think
So you gave it to him and he gave it you back?
He may have had it and took it away and it came back. But anyway, it came into my hands. And I thought, well, I'll read this. And you start reading it, thinking, what is this? Wow, this is weird and hard going. Well, that must have been, which book would that have been then? What was the first one?
A Yaqui Way of Life. The second one is A Separate Reality.
I think it must have been the first book then. But either way, I'm thinking, what the fuck is this? Like, really, this is the weirdest stuff I've ever read. But I'm hooked. Something's hooked me. Something has got me enough that I persevere with it and I read on. And normally with a book, if it doesn't grab me, I'm not interested. But this did. And so I read it, sort of digested it, and enough to then get, I think I borrowed the second book off my friend. I went, well, my mate didn't want it, but I've read it and I was quite interested and spoke to her a lot more about it then. Well, how did you get to hear of this Carlos Castaneda and all this wacky shit? And then the second book, and then from then on, I've read every book, and I'm reading now. Can't remember which title it is now, but I'm reading that one for probably the 5th time, and I'm almost all the way through it. I can't remember what it's called now. Active Side of Infinity. I think it might be that one.
But it just gets more bonkers, doesn't it? Because he's cut connection from his actual contact, who's given him all this knowledge. After the 3rd book, no.
Yeah,
so everything after that is just him making it up, and it's just more ludicrous without the actual sort of Indian knowledge that some Mexican guy had been giving him.
Yeah, but a lot of it, I find a lot of it is, what I like is the teachings in it seem to be logical to me.
They are, but yeah, I don't know. It only take me so far.
Yeah,
because it is a lot of layers of bollocks, and he has claimed it's a true story. That one pissed me off slightly, because he is totally the opposite of what his character he is in his book is trying to achieve.
Yeah,
he certainly did not become a man of knowledge. If you're going around living a lie, it's not impeccable, I suppose.
Well, I don't know, because
But yeah, there's a lot of truths. There's a lot of very good things woven in it. But there is other books out there like Michael Harner and Sandra Ingerman and stuff, who they literally just give you the knowledge. They're like, just do this. I'm not gonna add any fancy story.
Yeah.
Though the story is genius, and he is the ultimate con man, because it's a fantastic, because he's just an idiot. He's the author. He's writing the book about himself going to be an apprentice to a Mexican shaman, and he's a fool. And you're reading it, you're like, Carlos, if I was in your situation, I'd be a way better apprentice than you. Come on, sort your stuff out, you idiot. He puts that in your head. He puts himself down, so you really kind of buy into it.
But what I do find other things interesting that I come across is that he meets this character called Don Juan. His friend's dying in California, and he drives to Mexico, and he wants to say goodbye to the people because he's a dying man, and Carlos accompanies him. And then he talks about he wants to do these field studies and all this sort of stuff. But then he meets in a bus depot in Nogales, I don't know how you pronounce that, he meets this character called Don Juan for the first time, they said he's a cloud shaman and all this sort of stuff. But that's where he meets him for the first time. I found things like a link fascinating, is that one of my favourite mathematicians in this country is Marcus de Satoy, and he does quite a bit of TV work and things like that. And fantastic mathematician, fascinated with prime numbers and stuff like that. And then he says, Marcus de Satoy, when I was watching a documentary of him, and I'd love to email him, write to him and ask him the question, because he says prime numbers are fascinating. He does for me, a documentary has got to be kid-based. It's got to be simple, otherwise I just don't get it, And he says in that documentary, prime numbers. He starts to explain what prime numbers are. Quite a deep subject, but he puts it in good terms, so I get it. So whenever he does anything, Marcus de Satoy, I watch it because he can communicate to me. And I'm as thick as shit, but I can follow a path of logic, and that's what I like about him. But he says then in the documentary, he says prime numbers, blah, 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 blah. The whole program's about prime numbers and the curve of a football when it curves, and I'm coming to the point, but and he gets a glowing splint, like you do in chemistry, you have a burning stick. And this one, he's got quite a magical one where he lights it. It's not magical, but it's obviously the chemicals within it. You light it, and normally the smoke goes up, doesn't it? He lights this one on this documentary, and the smoke goes down. And it starts to come away from the... Is it called a spill? Anyway, the burning stick. Let's call it the burning stick.
Splint.
Splint. It burns, and the smoke goes down. And he says, now, if you look at the smoke, it goes in a straight line. But at a certain point, it does this. It goes sort of random. He said, that's called chaos. You see, if you can give a theory and write it down, what chaos is, you get $1 million. Fascinating, that is. But he says about the prime numbers and that. Then he says, bringing it back to Carlos Castaneda and all that, he said, even prime numbers, there's even a bus company in Mexico who use prime numbers for their route. And I'd love to write to him and say, is that Nogales? I love that kind of link. And I bet you it is the same bus station.
But he didn't meet... Don Juan wasn't real, and he didn't really meet him.
No, but it's mentioned in a book, so it's there. The words are real in black and white. But where does Carlos Castaneda write that because Marcus de Satoy says they use prime numbers in Nogales? No. This is something's in Nogales, the bus depot, which mentions this character called Don Juan, and then the link is, like when you're in Norway and you meet the woman you emailed, the link is this a bus depot, and I'm
in the whole of Mexico,
uses prime numbers for their bus routes.
I get what you're saying, but I think that
well,
you don't quite have all the evidence to back this up.
I'll email Marcus de Satoy, but everything in my body tells me it's Nogales. And I bet you'll write back and say, yes, that's the bus depot. And what a weird coincidence that is the bus depot that the bullshitter, Carlos Castaneda, meets Don Juan.
Well, it would be if we find out if it's true.
No, I'll write to Marcus de Satoy and I'll email you I'll forward his reply. And I bet it says, Dear John, what a fascinating question. Yes. No, I won't prompt him. I won't say, was it Nogales? I'll say, what bus depot were you on about? and hopefully he'll come back and say it's Nagala. So, oh, that's nice. I love links like that because they're above words. Then, no matter what's written in the book, the fact is, I've read those words. You've read those words. You know, it's like that one night I was at home on my own during my divorce. Everybody else had gone out of the house. It was getting dark, so it was 10:30, 11:15, summer's evening. Windows open in my bedroom. I sleep alone, and I was reading Carlos Castaneda. Can't remember what book. I'd have to look it up. But it's reading the book, and he says, "Oh, and yeah, and if you hear a branch crack, you've got to go and check a branch cracked." I can't remember why, because otherwise the bogeyman's coming or whatever. But you got to check. I'm reading this now, sitting in bed, at home, on my own, black out the windows, blackness out the windows. And the moment I read that, I'm hear an almighty branch crack. But for the fact I was reading it, you know, I'd thought, well, I probably would have shit myself. But I thought, oh, interesting. So then my human mind kicks in and says, oh, it's one of the horses. It'll be one of the horses pushed through the fence, leaning over, getting that extra blade of grass. And we've got like ranch fencing, and he's broken the fence. So I don't need to go outside and check. It's a horse, broken the fence. I could sort it out in the morning. And with that, finished reading, off to sleepy buyers. So the next morning, I just thought I'll have a look to see where the horse is, how far has it gone, because it won't go further than the nearest blade of grass. And there was a big branch on the top of a tree, and there was no wind. This was a still night. Big branch on the top of a tree outside my window, snapped off and dangling down. And that must have been 4, 5, 6 inches in diameter, and it split down. Explain that.
No, that's a better synchronicity. Yeah.
You like that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. And many others, in my life, my journey, and but that was poignant. That was so okay. He might have been a little bullshitter, but the fact is, I just read those words, and outside that window was a, you know. And again, we've spoken in the past about, you've got the friend with the UFO sightings, and I've seen in my life 2 UFO sightings. And I don't believe in UFOs, even to this day. But I like
one of those sightings not on mushrooms.
And neither were on mushrooms. But I still don't believe in little green men and alien spaceships. But I
it's because you won't allow your warehouse to expand, John.
Well, I just think it's more about us here on little old Earth. It's really centred on us down here on little old Earth for whatever reasons.
But for what reason do you have to think that?
The way energy works, it's so efficient. It's so efficient. Why does it need all those fillers and little green men?
Well, then they're not fillers, are they?
Well, they don't exist.
I mean, they're certainly far less fillers than this mug I'm holding in my hand.
But that mug doesn't exist anyway. That's just atoms.
Neither does anything then.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. So actually, yeah. So I'm probably right.
I
then.
mean, if they exist, just because you don't know something's purpose doesn't mean it doesn't have a reason for being there.
Yeah.
And reality is going to be so mind-bogglingly bigger and more complex than you can possibly comprehend. Just because something doesn't make sense to you doesn't mean that, like, certainly what you perceive is just a tiny fragment of just what there is.
I just think I don't think it's a necessary part.
But neither is anything if you look at it. So then why can't there be that? Like, you're not necessary. No offense.
Yeah.
I'm not necessary. Everything's still going to keep ticking if we're not here. We give our own perception to the world, and we add, like, my view of the world is totally unique compared to your view and the next person.
Yeah, but
that gives them that they give reality their own dimension and perspective. So would some other alien, other thing from other planets that do something totally differently than we do here. I mean, life could work totally different in different ways because of those different perspectives, and the universe needs those life forms and perspectives because the Earth doesn't see things like that. And then we're only talking then about our universe and dimension. Like, what about the other dimensions? And if there's infinite dimensions,
yes,
and maybe all these alien, say alien. What is a word for something that's different? You could have aliens at the bottom of the ocean, right? It's not necessarily an extraterrestrial.
I've swum off the coast of Abu Dhabi.
So, I mean, whatever these alien sightings are and stuff could be other dimensional beings, fairies.
Yeah, but I think if they were other dimensional,
spirits.
if they were there as other dimensional beings, why aren't they? Well, I'm not saying that they don't communicate with us. I do think there is another layer.
Well, the whole of shamanism is all about communicating.
Yeah,
with
that's what I was going on to say. There's another layer of the onion. Yeah, but
most people aren't capable of accessing.
But it doesn't. Yeah, well, I think everybody can because it's in front of their very eyes. But what veils it is the fog again of fear, clarity, power, and the ticking clock. But it's there for
bogged down in your 9 to 5 boring life.
Yeah, but then that's trapped in fear because you want to work to provide for your children because you fear that the children will suffer. You feel you will suffer. I want to make sure and most people have planned out their lives right until the time they go in a box. But if you take the fact that you are going to end up in a box or go back to this earth as your witness, so it all links. I like this word synchronicity. If you take that, bring it right back to the here and now to your very next decision, you act impeccably, energetically correct, which has got nothing to do with morality or anything like that, then that to me is logical. I like the click of the logic of that. And then you bring in the little green men, even though when I was with the friend viewing the one alien, let me call it an alien spaceship, I got him to actually draw it because I said, I know I've seen one before many years ago, and me and my brother who saw it never spoke about it for literally 20, 30 years. Never mentioned.
Oh, is that when you're driving a car? And was it like a...
No, I had to walk our friend home because he came back.
There was a big tube or something?
It was just lights, like a vessel with lights on it, following us at about 2. I remember because there was our drive was very dimly lit, but when you go onto the main road, you've got lampposts, and it was like twice the height of a lamppost. That was how I could sort of correlate the height of it. And even seeing that, yes, but we didn't speak about it for literally about 30 years. Could have been 30 years, 20 years, 25 years. And it was my wife at the time. We were talking with friends and talking about alien and UFOs. And I went, oh, I've seen a UFO. And then she went, oh, have you? You never said that. And I said, well, yeah. And I gave the story of the sighting. And I said, if you phone my brother and we haven't spoken about it, but phone him and see what he says, just in case I am deluded. And pretty much verbatim, he relayed the same story. And that was the first time, well, I didn't speak to him, she spoke to him on the phone. And then we met up, because he lived not far from me the day after, and we spoke about it again then. And I've never spoken to the friend who came running in scared because this thing was following him. Never spoken to him from that day until today. Never spoken to him. So if I see him again, it'd be good to, hey Dave, do you remember when you were a strapping young 16, 17-year-old and you were scared shitless by a...
So you agree that there's things...
Oh, and yes,
people
I
are
agree.
experiencing things
so then
that
yes.
aren't normally supposed to be there.
Yeah, but because we didn't speak about that, that's why when I saw another one up in the Sniper Stones, I got the friend I was with to draw it. And I was associated with the Pony Club then because of the kids. And the only thing we'd got in the car was a Pony Club pamphlet or brochure. And I got him to draw it. Because I said the last time I saw a UFO, I never spoke about it for 25 years. So, you might forget tomorrow. And so he drew what we both saw. I thought if we both drew it, but he drew it, and I got him to sign it. I wish I could find that book now.
And what did it look like?
It was long, aluminium, say that, windows.
What sort of shape?
Rectangular windows. In fact, you'll have to ask Graham, and when you see Graham next, and say to him,
Graham's.
Yeah, you'll have to say to Graham, oh, and let's see what he says. But I got him to draw it because I said the last time that nothing was spoken about for 20 odd years. I said, so you might forget tomorrow. So he drew it. But even then, yes, those things. Do I think there was a metallic? Well, was there a metallic spaceship going across the planet? Well, no more than that cup and that vase, because it's all energy, it's all atoms, it's all. But
yeah, but that's an irrelevant statement, because if so is the vase, then that thing has just as much significance as that vase in front of you. But I know you're going to deny the existence of that.
But I don't see the logic in it. I see the logic of that.
But why does it have to have logic? That's a very left brain thing to be to need.
It's got to fit into the big picture.
Yes, but you don't know the big picture. Yeah, and just because it doesn't make sense to your logic does not mean that there isn't so much greater logic.
If they're flying around quite nicely and quite silently in an aluminium or...
Well, yeah, but nobody's saying that, are they? Like, they could be from but they could be from another dimension. It could be passing through portals. Could be flickering between things. I mean, it looks like one thing, but like... I mean,
yes,
I get the example. Is it a man? Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Superman. Your eyes are, our senses are pretty shit. We can.
Yes, I get that, and I think, I mean, there was quite a bit of time difference between my two sightings, and if I went out into the car park now and saw, as I did actually when we were having a Chinese takeaway in the showroom, which we often used to with some friends many years ago, and I was facing out the window, sitting in the front here, and I was facing out the window. It was pitch black outside. I thought, oh my God, there's some sort of... I think I'm having another UFO sighting. It wasn't. It was one of those Chinese lantern. It was a Chinese lantern. They were very early, those, when they were very first started, and you see this light gliding across the sky. And I'm trying to carry on conversation, but all I'm doing is I'm transfixed with what's out the window. What? Anyway, it was obviously a Chinese lantern. Well, I assume it was a Chinese lantern. My warehouse has got Chinese lanterns in, so I labelled it as Chinese warehouse. And then I was walking up from when I lived on my farm, and we had just finished playing cricket. Quite a few family members went down in the field, and we were having a great game of cricket. And we're all walking back up the house, and I saw a ball of light go from left to right, quite sedately across the skyline. I was like, everybody's walking up the house, nobody's seen it, but I've seen it. What am I looking at? So we all went up the house, and I went, I've just seen something. I need to just go and retrace my steps to see what did I see and where did I see it. And I went back down the hill and walked back up and looked, and all I could see that it could have been was, because I want to fit this to a bit of logic, was the power lines coming to the house and the neighbours. That was the path it took. It was along that line. And I remember making a bit of an inquiry at the time, can you get these power surges or whatever along there? And that's all I don't know. Maybe it was an alien, I don't know. But it followed the line perfectly along these electric lines. So my warehouse has electric lines and has electricity and lights and sparks, and so we've got a label on that. Got to label it.
Well, we can finish it there, I think.
We'll have to do another one because there's a whole lot of Castaneda to go through yet. We've only covered barely 2 books. What about the Wheel of Time? What about the first Ring of Power? What about the second Ring of Power? This bullshit of Carlos Castaneda.
Yeah, and what about some real shamanism? You need to read Michael Harner.
Yeah, I've got that book on my list.
Yeah.
That and Spark Plug for the Boat.
Should we do this, John? It's good. Well, if you are in Mid Wales and in need of a bed or sofa, links will be in the show notes. If you like the podcast, any positive feedback on whatever platform you're listening on would help out a lot. And if you really love it, there are links to a Patreon in the show notes.